I think we can start, right? Is there any reason why we shouldn't?
No, I think you need
No, we should.
We should start.
But
okay,
I think you need
so
to introduce everything.
yes, yes. I'm not sure, other than the presentation you have, you want an opening remarks from one of you colleagues from MMSEZ, or should we just introduce my esteemed colleagues that are joining here to assist with the welcoming so that you can start?
Sure, I think, Prof, you need to just open up and then perhaps Mr. Moligwe would want to say something, and then we could do the presentation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming. Colleagues, once again, good afternoon, and thank you for signing in. I would really just say that if in the absence of Professor Bantwini, the Executive Dean of the Faculty of Human and Social Sciences and Education, I will just like to welcome all of you in this session, which is an outcome of an initiative, a collaboration between us and MMSEZ. Upon the delegation from the Vice Chancellor's office, there is a team that has been regularly meeting with the colleagues from MMSEZ. And so as we continued the discussion, we realized that perhaps today is important so that we can have this interactive session where we can get everyone to understand what the collaboration is about and the plans that are underway, such as the symposium that is coming and so forth. So colleagues, this is meant for your interaction, and therefore without any further waste of time, I will request colleagues from MMSEZ, Mr. Moligwe, Karuna, and colleagues to just take over and present the way you have planned. Thank you, Karuna. Thank you, Mr. Moligwe, and everyone else that I may be missing from the screen. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Prof. And we were glad to see a number of participants today. I'm seeing almost 70 plus participants for this meeting today, and we appreciate the effort you have made to pull such a crowd. What I'm going to do is just to introduce our service provider by the name of Spatialize. We have got a very brilliant and tough team that we assigned this work to do the specialized or the smart city model for us. And this smart city model is being initiated by Musina-Makhado SEZ, but it's not for only the Musina-Makhado SEZ, it's for the entire province. You will see when they present that what we're talking about a regional planning, which we want to turn it to be a regional spatial or smart city a region. So basically, we started this project in April. We commissioned on the 1st of April, Spatialized to do the work. We had reports starting from 9 April, just inception report, which took us to the next report, which was describing the visioning of the smart city. And then we have another report that talks about the strategies and all the remaining activities that all of us will remain to perform thereafter. And we also have the report which talks about the implementation plan. And there were a number of activities, as Prof. Nechandama indicated. We had a lot of meetings so far. So what we are doing now, we are preparing for the consultation process for the first draft of the model. And that exercise is going to start on the 19th, that is Thursday. And we thought Univen, because of its strategic partner with the MMSEZ, we need to take every one of you on board so that when we implement this program, majority of staff, majority of students, they are well aware of the project and what it entails. So that is the reason why today we have this forum, or we have this meeting, so that we just outline what a smart city model is all about, what is expected from us as government, what is expected from you as academics, what is expected from students and everyone involved in this co-creation of the smart city. So basically what I'm gonna do is to introduce specialized team. I see we have got Yusuf Patel, and then we do have Karuna Mohan, who is going to do a presentation together with Yusuf, I guess. And then we have Aisha, who is also our instrumental in arrangement and administration of the project. So on my side, I've got Chamano Makuya, who is also leading with our preparations for the upcoming event that we are going to have on the 16th of September, which is going to be the main event of unveiling the smart city model. So basically, Chairperson, without much ado, I can hand over to the specialized team to take us forward with the work for this afternoon. Thank you so much.
Yusuf, can I ask that you say a few words as an introduction, please?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and Mr. Moligwe, also all the rest of the colleagues from the SCZ. And it's wonderful to see so many different people, probably all from the university. So yeah, this is quite an exciting project, as Mr. Moligwe has been outlining. From the specialized team point of view, we've been, working on this project, seeing it from a perspective of its national significance, but also it's a pioneering kind of project for, I guess, Limpopo as a province, as well as, the areas closer to the SCZ. So this really, in a national context, is quite significant. Obviously, it's a project that is beginning to look at, how we can shape a better future in the area, utilizing the whole smart city model. But obviously, we're looking at it from a perspective of understanding the current economic, social, environmental situation and conditions, and how the project can actually enable transformation of the people and the economy, in the area. So, from that perspective, there's been considerable work done in terms of envisaging the smart city model and what it could be and what it could mean for the people of Limpopo, but also in terms of its national significance as an SCZ, and fundamentally an SCZ has got a critical economic driver to it. So we have to look at how we can begin to ensure and enable the economic fundamentals of the project because ultimately to be able to implement it, we've got to attract, it's got to have a business model to it, it's got to attract investment, and it's got to function in a practical way to really, fundamentally create significant investment and business and community development opportunities. So from that perspective, I'll ask Karuna maybe then to take us through the presentation. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Yusuf. I'm going to share my screen. So please let me know if you're actually seeing it. Right. It's taking a bit of time. I'm not able to see it. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes,
Yes, we can.
Karuna, we are able to see.
Yes, we
thanks.
can.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And, I think the last time I spoke to a grouping of people at the university in this number was probably in 1980. So excuse me if I still have a lot of old school ideas in me, and it's really nice to engage with you. Now, in terms of the model developed for Musina-Makhado Special Economic Zone, the vision is really to be a leading, innovative, sustainable, and inclusive high-tech Africa gateway city, driven by residents and visionary investment within a prosperous rural-urban integrated region and operating as a highly connected freight, warehousing, logistics, transport, retail, manufacturing, industrial hub, supporting the SEZ with a super efficient Gauteng, Limpopo, Zimbabwe economic corridor. And perhaps before I move on, I'd like to say it's really nice to see Dr. Kevin Anoa on the Teams meeting. I think this would be quite useful for you, especially given an overall context. So in South Africa, there's a national corridor, a national transformation corridor that's been set up, which is linked directly to the special economic zone that Musina and Makhado actually are part of. And it's a national transformation corridor. Now, obviously the area that you see, number 5, that's going to be the Arid Region. And this is part of the National Spatial Framework, which informs how we actually develop the country. As you can see, the number 5 area on that picture actually shows the area that's going to be totally arid in times to come. But the corridors that are number 1, the 3 of them, they are actually seen as the transformation corridors for the country.
Your side, yeah. Okay, sure.
Now, we do know that the National Development Plan and each province has looked at plans. Limpopo has a new development plan. And in this development plan, they want to develop smart green cities. They want to embrace renewable energy. They want to actually implement 4IR education systems, which will be very important for you as the higher education institute in the area. They want to actually evolve businesses so that they participate in 4IR and are globally competitive. They want to diversify the economy, and they want to connect communities up, as well as ensure that there's new economic infrastructure that helps the province to leapfrog into the future. And this just shows us Limpopo in its spatial context. We can see that Limpopo is the gateway to many countries that neighbor South Africa: Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Botswana, there are linkages from Limpopo directly into these areas. And of course, you know, you can see that the Polokwane, as well as wherever you located in Toyando, is seen as urban areas, and the rest of the province is literally dotted with small towns and just regional economies that are far-flung. Now, Limpopo contributes 7% to South Africa's economy. It houses 10% of the population. And its growth was dominated by mining, especially in platinum and national construction projects. The Venda district, where the SEZ is located, it contributes about 63 billion rand to the GDP of the country, and 17% to the provincial GDP, and just obviously 1% to South Africa's GDP. Now, the Venda population is about 1.5 million, and we can see that basically there are just a few areas that's very sparse, and that's Musina. The rest of the areas are pretty highly densely populated, and this is an anomaly in terms of ruralization in South Africa. It's a legacy and a spin-off from the former homeland system, because the surplus people were actually put into those homelands over the years. So we have a lot of inequality backlogs, and we do have future needs. The benefits of the growing economy in Limpopo has not reached households in a significant way. 4 out of 10 households in Makhado are involved in agricultural production. About 51% of the households in the district of Venda are headed by women. And many of the households in the entire province continues to be dependent on state grants for survival. And while that is great, because our social program actually helps people to keep people out of deep poverty, it is not a sustainable way of running a country. 1 in 5 people in the complex of the 2 towns of Musina and Makhado have achieved matric, and about 40,000 people are actually working in the informal sector, and this is mainly in informal trade and subsistence agriculture. Currently, about 400,000 households require universal access to basic services. And by 2014, about 1.5 million people in the area will require education, health, and other social services. So there is a new program in the country, and that's called the District Development Model. And hopefully that process will help with a one plan for Venda being developed to harness all the synergies and begin to meet the backlogs and future needs. So what are the opportunities to develop the economy in Limpopo? And of course, the low-hanging fruit in the economy is actually agro-processing, because there is agricultural production taking place. Of course, mining is set to dominate the production structure of the economy, and beneficiation of minerals that are mined would help to improve the contributions of manufacturing and trade. Ecotourism is an advantage in the area. However, we all know because of COVID, tourism has taken a knock. So a lot will depend on conditions of COVID globally lifting, and then ecotourism could really be harnessed as an advantage. There's a lot of mining land in the Limpopo area that needs to be unlocked, and the rehabilitation of mining land would help in a big way to actually unlock the value of land. In moving into a smart city, there are 2 important things that need to be taken into account. One is protecting the environment and the choices of technology that would help to reduce waste and carbon emissions. That's one very important issue. The second is the issue of retaining culture and heritage in a modern world, as this is a legacy for future generations. Now, what is the game changer for the special economic zone in Musina-Makhado? Firstly, it's to leverage off the free trade agreement and to harness the advantage of the Beitbridge border. And in this, a special retail center for the rest of Africa could be set up. And, you know, it could be a one-stop retail shop for all Southern African products, whether it's wine from the Western Cape or dried fruit from the Northern Cape, or clothing and textiles, or food or luxury goods, or furniture or hardware. And of course, light manufacturing of goods for export in the SEZ would really help with absorption of labor. And so the focus really for the smart economy in terms of the SEZ should actually be on the tertiary sector of the economy, where you could focus on improving trade and in that way improve growth in the country. And so it's really about transport, freight, warehousing, logistics, finance, and e-services. Now, there are two big things that can happen, and one is the developments linked to the Beitbridge border post that's currently underway by national government to accommodate trucking and the transporting of goods into Africa. And there are plans for a smart transport network to be developed. And if that's harnessed, then clearly the SEZ is in a very good position to be catalyzing the economy of not just the Venda district, but the entire country. There are a number of people who are working in the informal sector. I did mention there were 40,500 of them employed in informal activity. So services to them in terms of business services as well as financial services would be quite important, especially since they're actually doing some productive activity in the informal economy. And if we do this kind of thing, we can leapfrog the local economy from an informal, deindustrialized activity, economic activity into post-industrial activity, if we're able to leverage off latest technology. Now, it's important for us to actually look at why smart cities did come about. Leaders across the world were forced to review, rethink, and reconfigure their planning and find innovative ways to cope with change due to new challenges. And the smart cities approach is just one approach of many. So when I spoke of the vision right at the beginning, I did read it out to you. So let's look at what was pushing this change and how did this vision, what informed this vision. There are a number of drivers. I think we all know about the Paris Agreement, the 4IR Commission report in South Africa. There's the Free Trade Agreement in Africa that actually came into effect in January this year. There's the African Agenda 2063. There's also the NDP, the RUDF, the Integrated Urban Development Framework. But we also know that there's been some recession. There's a huge recession in the economy. Our economy is very depressed. We also know that frontier technologies and 4IR is changing the way work is done. Work is now technology enabled, and basically technology has really moved very clearly into a whole range of things. Is the presentation
sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, Karuna. I'm not sure if it's only on my side, but I think the slides are not playing all the time, and there's some whiteboarding in progress. So I'm not sure if we can.
Sorry, Karuna.
Leonard is sharing his screen.
Yes.
I think somebody's sharing your screen. I'm trying to get hold of them to unshare.
Somebody called Leonard. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm trying my best to get hold of the gentleman. Thank you.
Okay.
It's not your presentation.
And Karuna, is it possible to do it on the PowerPoint version, Karuna?
It is the PowerPoint version, Yusuf.
Okay.
but I can't find it now. This is really not good. Let's see where it went to.
It's fine. We're back to you, Karuna.
You are back to me. You're seeing my screen.
Yeah.
This
Okay,
is
there
the
we go.
PowerPoint version. Yes.
Okay, we see it now.
You see it now. Okay. So.
Sorry, it was just
All right.
somebody who shared their screen and they could not leave. Thank you.
Okay. No problem. So did you got up to here? I was talking about the fact that there's a lot of drivers to what is pushing for change right now. And perhaps to just say that climate change, the frontier technologies that are dominating our world are big issues. But
colleagues, can we just please mute ourselves? Let's just make sure that we've muted ourselves. Thank you. Sorry, Karuna. You may proceed.
okay, I'm going to proceed. If I can get to it again. Can you see the screen? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Okay, I was.
Yes, we can.
At this point. Okay, so let's just look at three big things that have come up. From that approach, the one big issue is urbanization. And we do know that more than 2/3 of the world's population will be living in urban areas in 2050. So it's very important for governments and cities to plan for this. And the urbanization trends in Africa shows that most of the urbanization that is taking place is actually bringing about informality, unplanned housing, poverty, and inadequate infrastructure. And in South Africa, in most of the major cities, the in-migration from rural areas into urban centers is the big issue and the big problem. The second big thing that has happened globally is that there's rapid technological advancement that has been taking place. 70% of the world's people use mobile phones to communicate, but not just to communicate, to also access information. The internet is another technological advancement that has more than half the world's population using it on a daily basis. And these big examples of technologies that enable communities and societies to connect with each other is helping countries now to actually leapfrog the linear path of progress. So countries that have adopted rapid advances in technology increase their competitiveness and also improve their human development index. And so there's a lot of successes registered by various localities in the world that show that a national program of innovation and the embracing of new technologies, especially linked to developing skills, has actually made those countries more competitive and better places to live. So frontier technologies now open up a new window for people to catch up and accelerate development. The third big thing that's affecting everybody is climate change. And we all know the world is getting hotter. The freak floods are increasing. We had Idai a couple of years back that affected Limpopo very badly. These fossil fuels and the reduction of carbon emissions is something that's been on the Paris Agreement. And the entire world needs to come together and work to it. What is clear is that poor people are more vulnerable to climate change. And so the fourth issue that's affecting everybody is global pandemics. And in the global pandemics, we do know that zoonotic changes have affected the environment badly. There's been shifts in the relations of production and consumption, and trading partners, traditional trading partners, are reorganizing their markets and supply chains. And that we know from just looking at how the vaccines and the, you know, the distribution of vaccines have gone around the world. Lastly, and something you know very clearly as the university, the social systems on health and education were impacted. And then, of course, the other big thing is that we have a number of spatial and economic inequalities that we actually all have been witnessing. And so basically urbanization has exacerbated economic disparities, largely because of spatial inequalities. We know that there's a digital divide. The broadband penetration in South Africa is very low, but we also know that we have a very high unemployment rate in South Africa, and we have legacy issues in terms of human development. Now, the literature on smart cities raises a number of things. And of course, what is required is leadership from all avenues of society to come together and focus on what the critical issues are to actually getting a smart city going. So some of the elements of a smart city, and this is what most of the competitiveness index and smart city index measures for smart cities. Firstly, they measure the competitiveness of the economy. They measure whether your human capital is in place and whether there's lifelong learning. They measure whether citizens participate in society using ICT. They measure accessibility of the information as well as mobility in terms of how people move around. They assess the issues of living conditions and the quality of life of citizens. And of course, the environment issues in terms of whether a city is clean, whether pollution levels are being assessed and managed and reduced. So basically, smart cities really require everybody to come together and deal with it. So in a smart city, if we look at this, we can see that all the big things about the economy, about being climate friendly, about using your resources efficiently, it's all driven by tools. And the tools are actually tools that technology provides, whether it's ICT or whether it's in terms of the movement of goods and services much faster, or the movement of money much faster. So in terms of this vision, we actually came up with key transformation areas to make this vision real. And these are some of the key transformation areas. The first one is around the people, having a smart and capable demographic profile. The second is around the economy. The third is around space restructuring. The fourth is around looking at the smart technology as well as the hard infrastructure. The fifth one is around a low carbon and green sustainable society. The next one, which is the fifth one, it's around the issues of integrated human settlements for smart living, to be able to work remotely from home. And then also the one on heritage, art and culture being retained in the digital world. And lastly, the last two are around governance and partnerships. So these are the key areas where if we transform the way we work, we'll be able to realize this vision. I'm not going to go into all of this, ma'am, because it takes quite long. We will I think we have shared this part of the presentation with the university previously. So there are objectives to each of these transformation areas. Basically, to look at what would make up a smart and demographic profile, how would we actually get inclusive economic growth objectives in place, same with the spatial restructuring, and same with this whole thing of the infrastructure provision, and also in terms of the green and low carbon sustainable development principles, and then the issue of the integrated human settlements, and then looking at how we keep heritage, art, and culture in place. And then, of course, the governance issues and the partnerships issues. And so basically, there's a whole lot of huge sets of actions, strategic actions for the SEZ to embark on, for the SEZ and government to look at, so that they work, for the province and the SEZ to actually get together and work on, and for the SEZ to work with the municipalities. Now, obviously, everything gets pulled together in terms of having your policy base in place. And so if we look at committing to spatial transformation, we're saying the quality of life actually depends on having strategic spatial formations where things are accessible, they're inclusive, they're productive, there's a profitable process that's taking place, it's livable and affordable, and there's a cross-hybridization of spaces. And in the policies, those things are actually there in terms of the land use management policies, and the National Spatial Development Framework. It actually talks to that. In terms of reducing the carbon footprint, there's a number of things, and I think the issue of biogas is pretty important. The other points are the points about being able to actually utilize solar technologies to generate energy. So that's the area. And then lastly, there's an issue of introducing innovation into the whole process. And here we do know that cities can become smarter through a series of steps that helps them to respond to, if they collect big data, they can actually respond much quicker to solutions. But we do know that there's an unequal access to technology that exists right now, and the inequalities could get replicated. But in a smart city, digitization and technology really provides a high quality of life for the citizens, the businesses, and visitors. At this point, I want to invite Ashraf to unmute himself. Ashraf is a member of our team, and I think he's just going to take you through a few points around the triple helix. Ashraf, could you go ahead and unmute yourself, please?
Thank you, Karuna. Thank you, colleagues, professors, fellow team members. It has been a very interesting journey for the team, and we have worked as an integrated team, and all the outputs on the key performance areas has been gone through a solid research process. So thank you, Karuna, Yusuf, for the leadership and the teamwork from the MMSEZ and Univen colleagues. So mine would be fairly looking at the frameworks of a smart city, cognizant of the reality that South Africa is basically a developing country economic status under the UN, United Nations system. And within that framework, naturally, we've developed a range of national policies, i.e. the National Development Plan, the Industrial Policy Action Plans that has sectoral industry and industrialization objectives, energy policy, sustainability policies, and then we have science and innovation systems. So broadly speaking, if we look at the various national policy frameworks and outcomes, there is a move towards integrated approach. I think the DDM model is basically an outcome of this kind of thinking, integrated thinking. And we definitely locate the idea of smart cities within that. And then, in terms of literature review, you have the phenomena of smart partnerships, which then elaborates itself into what is called the triple helix model. And that basically is to say that innovation is being democratized. It's not just the purview. Innovation doesn't just rest within industry or within academia or government, but by and large, as the world goes digital and as platforms become more accessible, or we find a burst of innovations from different spaces, especially among students and entrepreneurs. And within this, the logic of triple helix model states that how do we capture that innovation? There may be students in a rural district in Venda, and they've discovered something very interesting around agriculture. Does it just stay with them? Is there an ecosystem that the local government or the university has in place that can allow for this to develop? I think that's the practical example of triple helix model. And that means that there are lots of responsibilities with the different partners. So industry has to come to the party. It needs to think developmental. It's not just about essentially the process of services and contracting and e-government, and it needs to be broadened so that you have co-innovation. And models like living labs is one example of that. At a more concrete level, one of the key investment packages we looked at was a innovation hub. We're modeling it on different experiences in Gauteng, etc., and how we can then replicate that within the MMSEZ, and that can be an interesting resource for the community and the innovation system or ecosystem to flourish. One must also be cognizant that many provinces are competing. So yes, the SEZ model is an experiment by DTI. Different SEZs are at different levels, and they have different capabilities and different resource endowments. It's up to the SEZs and province and partners to leverage all of that. So very much it will be competitive. A key objective is investment, FDI attraction, and how each SEZ develops its regional spatial development frameworks or various spatial frameworks. I think that would be a critical success factor going forward. So yes, that has been the research so far, and we definitely look forward to a more productive sessions in the days ahead, and also to include the communities. By communities, I mean ICT SMEs, women-owned enterprises, industrial organizations, standardization organizations. These all have a critical role to play in that developmental, industrial, and innovation systems. And I think that is the overview for now. Yes.
Thank you very much, Ashraf. So having taken that detour, I want to bring you back to the methodology we used to analyze the spatial development frameworks to understand best the spatial makeup. And so we looked bottom up, which may be seen as top down. We looked at the National Spatial Framework. We looked at the Limpopo Spatial Framework. And then we looked at the regional spatial framework that's being done up. And then we looked at the Makhado and Musina spatial development frameworks. And then we got to site-specific for the two different sites of the SEZ. And some of the points that emerged from our analysis was that public services were not being delivered well. Settlement patterns require serious attention. Infrastructure development is ad hoc and it's actually hindering spatial integration. There's environmental issues, there's rehabilitation, conservation and preservation that needs to be looked at so that ecological resources are maintained. There's limited diversification in the rural and agricultural value chains, and tourism development could be explored through innovation, especially looking at culture, ecotourism, and agritourism. In terms of the sustainability issues, obviously being part of the coal belt, there's a whole range of things around fossil fuels, and there needs to be a transitioning from fossil fuels to renewable energy options. And there's limited understanding of the waste value chain. And so that also is an area that can be looked at. And lastly, the mitigation strategies for climate change adaptation needed a little more focus. And then when we looked at things, and I'm glad you had the talk about innovation before, because the first step is to start using IT and using some of the smart technologies and integrations that are already around. Smart lighting, smart transport, intelligent transport systems, smart utility metering for electricity and water. Of course, then there are big issues that come up, digital security issues, and also the whole issue of, where we stand. But currently, the existing infrastructure for energy, water, waste, and transport is based on non-intelligent systems. So this is literally almost a greenfields development. Now, we obviously, to build that smart city, we need to address all of these issues in a new spatial form. And, we're going to have to make the new Limpopo. And the suggestion is that we can make the new Limpopo in terms of having a smart city region. And so this map actually shows the smart city region identified. Right on the top, you see the Beitbridge border, and very close to the Beitbridge border is the Musina-Makhado SEZ. Now, no SEZ in the country, no special economic zone is not attached to a port of entry. And so Beitbridge border is the port of entry for the SEZ. And then if you look very carefully, you can see that there's quite an interesting corridor, the Trans-Limpopo corridor, which is a provincial corridor, and that takes you, it takes you right from Johannesburg through to Beitbridge, and that's the N1 corridor. Now, in terms of the spatial changes that we're talking about, and this map actually shows it a little more carefully, while there are main roads that exist, obviously there's linkages that with the smaller roads, and all the gray in this map shows us all the smaller roads. The green areas is the high yielding agricultural land. The light yellow is the areas of ecological sensitivities. And the gray area is the coal belt, and the orange areas in this map is the transfrontier parks. Now, the smart region, as it's been developed, covers all 4 municipalities of the Venda district. It touches on all of them. And the sites that will catalyze the economy and really develop manufacturing and trade are actually the SEZ sites. So the 2 pink sites are the ones that are quite important. And then, of course, if we look at this map carefully, we can see that there can be a lot of strategic development between Musina and Makhado. So you can actually begin to develop that corridor a little more carefully. And of course, if we're talking of making of the new Limpopo, as the Limpopo Development Plan talks about, then the CBDs of Musina and Makhado will become the new Limpopo in time to come. Of course, this area, as I've indicated, is very rich in agriculture. There are in this region, the smart region identified, there are 2 priority human settlement housing development areas demarcated by national government. And then, of course, you do have the Transfrontier Park on the west and the east, and through the border posts. And this could actually help to really develop tourism once we're able to do it. And of course, I think we all know that corridors are the way to go to unleash development. And so we spoke earlier on about the National Transformation Corridor. And of course, then there's the Trans-Limpopo Corridor. And if we have to really develop the 2 towns, Musina and Makhado, then that's a corridor in itself. And then there's a series of other corridors that we've developed, the Mutachi corridor, which is very close to the border post, the Bait Bridge border post, is something that the Musina municipality has put through. Then there's the Maibane-Shlangenani development corridor, which Makhado is talking about, as well as the Elim-Vuyani corridor, development corridor. And both these corridors will actually bring about a lot of development in agriculture, and then the agriculture and conservation corridor, as well as a tourism corridor. And so this shows you the corridors, and you can see the little dots in red shows that there could be a lot of good development at key points. Smaller settlements, lower order settlements could be developed to become higher order settlements. And of course, the yellow that's placed in those yellow dots just shows that you can develop the green corridor, which is the corridor that develops Musina and Makhado. It's part of the Trans-Limpopo corridor. The agricultural corridors are the corridors from Maibane to Shlangenani. And the other one is from Elim to Vuyani. So it's really to unleash all this agricultural development. And then the tourism corridors are the ones in blue and gray. So having said that, let's get back to the SEZ site. And we're talking about the northern side of the SEZ, closer to the Bait Bridge border. This is the floor plan for that SEZ site. And you can see that we've taken Porter's model and clustered the industries so that you can actually catalyze the economy a little better. And so we're looking at packaging, logistics, and warehousing, very close to where the SEZ site connects to the N1. An African innovation cluster to house the living lab that Ashraf spoke about, and to have a proper innovation hub in there, one-stop retail center that I spoke about earlier on, an electronics cluster, a light manufacturing cluster, a food and beverage cluster to loop back to the agricultural production that takes place and to increase the value chain of beneficiation from agriculture, and a wood and paper cluster to actually really manufacture goods from the woodlots. And then a climate change knowledge center is also looked at, and the yellow area that you see in this is a residential area. Now, this is the first SEZ site in the country that actually has mixed land uses in it and will have mixed developments. So this is an idea. This is now the beginnings of putting the footprint down for a smart and dynamic SEZ site. In terms of the smart border, the border post, obviously there are some things that are being done at the moment. This is just to place it and to say that that's obviously going to have to also happen. In terms of the smart village, it's really to ensure that there's food security, some democratic engagements, proper services in the areas, the ability to link up to education and local businesses. And I quite liked this idea of saying not smart city, but smart village, you know, explains things. So the big question is, how do we put all this together and how will it happen? And it can only happen if we adopt a smart and green developmental path, if we harness the NSDF, the National Transformation Priority Corridor, if we leverage off the Limpopo, Trans-Limpopo Corridor, and if we work to set up that one-stop center for Africa Free Trade, and if we concentrate on agriculture and create smart villages, and if we make those SEZ sites catalytic nodes, and also look at renewing and regenerating the CBDs of Musina-Makhado, we smarten the border post, and we also make all efforts to set up the Africa Innovation Cluster. And if we do that, then we can actually see in this map that Musina is poised to be the center of the Southern Africa, the Southern African community, the center of SADC. But it won't become the center if we do not start somewhere. And the way we can start with things is with a smart city model where the SEZ sites play a very catalytic role. Thank you, ma'am. That takes you through 63 slides.
Thank you, Karuna, and your team. We really appreciate, and we still have time for interaction. I will open up to colleagues to raise issues, but before I do that, let me just acknowledge, because earlier on I saw that my boss, DVC Research and Postgraduate Studies, was in this session, and the Executive Dean for Science, Engineering and Agriculture, Professor Mokgalaka, as well, is here, as well as the Executive Dean for the Management Sciences and Law. So I just wanted to acknowledge them. DVC Professor Nosisi Feza is here, and I would like to have at some point to say a few words. But colleagues, we can also use the chat for some of the questions. I can already, I saw the hand, but I can't pick it up who that was, but can I allow?
I think it's Najisa Uruntambereni, I think.
Yes, yes, please. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Prof. I've got a few questions after I've listened to the presenter. One, I just want to know if ever, because that area, initially I know that there were a lot of land claims from different clans. For instance, Neutamba family, they lodged a claim and they have not yet received their answers of they have not yet responded to. And the Nechianane family and many other families. So I just want to know from the presenter if ever these people were consulted or contacted when these people are coming up with this big plan, which I think is going to help us as South Africans. That's question number one. Question number two, I heard the presenter talking about people going to benefit. Who are going to be the beneficiaries when these land claimants are still waiting for the commissions and the government to give them an answer of the land claims that they've lodged? That's question number three. And I think the other question is what is that? How many hectares I don't know who, I don't know where to point a finger to say this person is the one who got that piece of land. Then, but I can just ask, how many hectares do you have in that piece of land? Because the other time, many times as I'm driving down to Musina, I just estimate that it might be 100 or 1,000 hectares. So I just want to know from the presenter, because I think this project is a good project, but not to all, because we have the people who claimed that piece of land and they've not yet received anything in black and white or just verbally. Thank you. I will ask some questions whenever all those other questions have been answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonechi Saulu. Colleagues, is there anyone who has a question? I also want to acknowledge the presence of Senior Professor Ekose in our midst. I will be looking at...
Sorry, I wonder if you could introduce the people to us so we know which discipline they're coming from, and you know, yeah, you know everybody, but you know, when you're recognizing them, could you please clarify who they are, which faculty they're from?
Yes, Karuna, I just said their designation when I was introducing them, but from now, moving forward to the end of this session, I will also ask colleagues before they raise a question to just introduce themselves. Karuna, amongst our midst, I will just repeat one person who is our DVC Research, Deputy Vice Chancellor Research and Postgraduate Studies. And Professor Nosisi Feza, she's here. And I want to acknowledge that all the executive deans that you have met in another meeting, except Professor Bantwini, are here in this session. But moving forward, as they talk, they will also colleagues will introduce themselves. I can see that Professor Feza wants to say a few words now because she is moving on to another session. So can we allow our Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research and Postgraduate Studies to say a few words? Professor Feza, the platform is yours.
Thank you very much, Prof. Thank you very much to the colleagues. I'm so sorry about this, but I have another meeting that is very important I need to attend. I would like to appreciate the people who were presenting. There are many burning questions that I see are coming in terms of the land. I wanted to also talk about what do we mean by smart? What is smart by, in terms of defining, if I'm staying in a village and my land is used, what is smart about it? How sustainable the smartness of the idea that is brought to me and my children and my great grandchildren. And in terms of distribution of wealth for the Africans in the African land, in this smartness of the cities and villages we might be looking at, what does that mean to the people of the land who were already robbed their land during the times when trust was used, when people would just come and cut their land in halves? I'm one of the victims because my grandfather's land, we lost it completely over that. So when we talk in a liberated sense of smartness and distribution of land, and also wealth that is sustainable, that will be inherited over and over by other children, like other nations have done in our own land. What do we mean by smartness? What is smart about what we are bringing on board? Because it has to be about sustainable of wealth too. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Professor Feza. I will request Karuna and your team to respond before Professor Feza leaves, please, if we may. And then colleagues, I've acknowledged you. We will give you the second round. Thanks.
Prof, can I just introduce myself since I didn't mention my name and
okay.
The department?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Ntambeleni Nechisauru from School of Human and Social Sciences, University of Venda. Thank you.
Thank you. Karuna.
Thank you, Chair. I think, you know, if the land question doesn't pop up in any consultations you have, then you're not in South Africa. So, you know, the points raised by both the DVC and the doctor is important. Going forward, we've just presented a concept. The work actually starts after this. And for those senior members of the university who were on the previous session that we had with the VC and the CEO, you know that it was one of the things we raised very sharply, that you can't do spatial transformation, you can't transform the economy unless the land issue is resolved. Now, we haven't actually gone through that level of detail around, how much of the land in the smart region is subject to land claim, how much of it is actually under traditional rule, traditional authority, how much of it is totally underdeveloped. All of those detailed granular plans will need to be developed, but alongside the concept itself. And I fully agree with the DVC, this idea of things being smart, but they need to be real to me. They need to be real to my culture, my practice, and I need to know where we're taking things to. Now, the difficulty is that the world has moved to another way of working. If we want to remain competitive, we've got to change the way we're dealing with things. In the early 90s, you know, we did studies before we did the RDP, as well as a number of other policy papers in terms of being ready to govern for the country. And one of the things I know I did was looking at the choices of technology in manufacturing. And I did a study across the country in terms of, you know, what choices were manufacturers using around technology, because that would have impacted, and it has impacted on displacing workers. But it has also meant that, you know, we've lost out on being competitive enough to get going in the global value chain. Right now, the only global value chain that we're part of is the automotive cluster. And even though the area produces so many things in terms of agriculture, we're not even at the point where we're able to say we're exporting or beneficiating any of it. So we're in a catch-22 in terms of the economy, and these are choices we're going to have to make. Now, the smartness in terms of distribution of wealth is dependent on the policy that the country has on the economy. And, you know, there's been a mixed policy for a very long time. It's a mixed economy. And so you're not going to have a true redistribution of wealth. But there can be a slant to actually say that you want to actually improve people's lives. And then the last point is around the rural areas. What is smart? Around villages, what is smart? Well, if the villages actually use solar energy, for example, to produce energy and is not totally dependent on Eskom, then that's a smarter way of operating. If the cow dung is used to produce biogas, anaerobic digestion, then we actually becoming very smart. We're doing things in a different way. But the biggest thing is if we connect up all of the villages with the connectivity that is required, then even you and I can go and live in some of these areas and still participate in the modern world, because we'll be connected with digital technology to connect to anywhere in the world. So, you know, the value of what can be done is also dependent on how we take our people with us on it. And if the land issue is not resolved, it's not sorted out, we cannot progress. We cannot get on with any more development. So I hope I've managed to answer the question. Simply put, this is just the start. A lot of this granular detail that you're referring to has to be debated. It has to be talked about, and proper solutions have to be found.
Thank you, Karuna. I can see Womuligwe colleagues, Professor Mashige, Kanyane, and others. I note you, but I'm just assuming that Womuligwe wants just a follow-up. Am I correct, Womuligwe?
Yes, I want to add on Karuna's response.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to be specific, especially on the point that was raised by Dr. Nechisauru. And then I'll also touch a bit on what Professor also asked on my answering. The issue on the SEZ with a specific reference to the land claims. We've got about 11,500 hectares that are going to be used. And let us proudly say that of all those hectares of land, those are the resolved land claims that Land Commission is able to resolve. In the south side, we've got approximately 8,000 hectares that belongs to the Murambiana Communal Property Association. And we have entered into the lease agreement with that CPA for the next 30 years with an option to renew that lease agreement. And that is the one benefit that our community are going to get with respect to the land that has been restored back to them. And they've got a stake in the entire development that is going to take place over there. And the 3,500 hectares in Musina, Antonville, which is also one of our sites. We've got 2 sites that we're going to develop these mega projects. There is also a land claim by the Valea CPA, but that one is still in the process of restoration. So basically what is going to happen, whether the land is going to be restored back to its original ownership or no, the communities are going to benefit. One, when the Land Claims Commission resolve or settle the land claims, they either has to agree with the claimants whether they become part of the project or whether they receive compensation from government. So that is how the community benefits with the restored land in terms of the procedures of the land claims. So I just want to indicate that all this land in South Africa, like what Karuna said, that in South Africa, 90% of land is claimed, is underclaimed. But we say we can't stop development. Development should continue while other processes are following to resolve those land claims. And the whole corridors that Karuna was presenting, from Musina to Makhado, there are lots of land claims. And some of the pieces of land that are still going to be restored back to their own rightful owners who lost the entitlement of that land. But we are saying we need to come up with an effective ways of using those particular land parcels. And there are a lot of activities that are happening around those land parcels. So basically what we're trying to indicate here is that all this land that we're going to use belongs to some other people. Other land claims are resolved, others are not. But in terms of the smart village, I think Karuna has indicated very well the benefits. We are talking about the mega projects or the mega economic spin-off that is going to happen. But what is it that we want now, as we are speaking? When my grandmother died, she had a smart cell phone in her hand. So what was that smart cell phone used for? So we need to maximize connectivity so that our grandparents, our parents can able to pay their rates and taxes. They can able to buy electricity from their cell phone. They can able to use those smart gadgets so that they can be off the spin-off that we actually need to want them to improve their life. There are so many examples that we will unveil that we'll talk about together with the university that are proposed in this project, that if we focus on these particular programs, we can able to benefit. I know university for us now, there is a UIGC that is doing connectivities to other areas within our district of Venda in partnership with Venda District Municipality. So those are initiatives that has got very early spin-off that we have to look at so that our community benefit immediately while we are waiting for this other highly sophisticated and technological advancement of the program that we want to talk about. So those are the few things that I want to add, Prof, so that at least we can try to unpack what all these things has to do with the issues of land and benefits. Thank you so much.
Thank you, colleagues. May I now take this opportunity to recognize colleagues whose hands were up for a long time. I saw Professor Kanyane, who is the Executive Dean of the School of Management and Law, and I'm sure he's also going to want to be excused, and then Professor Mashige, Dr. Chikota, in that order. And if there's anyone else that I've left out, I will pick on those in the later session. Can Professor Kanyane please take the platform?
Thank you very much, Chair, and also want to thank this empowering presentation that has been made, and I'm also thankful that we are beginning to engage in this smart region. What I want to bring forth is that the concept of the smart village and the concept of the smart cities are very critical. And my emphasis is even to say that the smart cities should not be a proxy for smart villages. So the urban-rural connect should always be fully pronounced so that there should be a balancing act. But my question is more to do with the IKS, the Indigenous Knowledge System, which has the Indigenous Knowledge Act that talks more about bicultural protocols. And I think if we can add that perspective in our talks often, we will go a long way in making sure that even when we're talking smart cities or smart villages, we should not lose the sight of our indigenous practices that are protected by the IK Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kanyane. Professor Mashige.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mine is it's a superficial question, but I think that is important in terms of the envisaged development that was presented here. It looks very promising and exciting, but I just wanted to find out whether people have already, as part and parcel of this entire process, begun to engage with a number of stakeholders, because I'm just thinking out aloud here that we may have all these things packaged, and then you find that there are people who come in with a lot of sponsorships from different people with different interests around issues of environmental impact assessment. So I just want to find out whether that assessment has been done or not, because that is another risk area that may arise as a result of not taking them in at this point in time. Thank you.
Professor Mashige, thank you. Please introduce yourself, and then you will be followed by Dr. Chikota and Tendai Gondo. Prof. Mashige.
Yes, I forgot to do that. My name is Mashudu Mashige. I am attached to the School of the Faculty of Humanities, Social Sciences, and Education as a research professor. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Chikota.
Thank you, Prof. I'm Dr. Shuman Leonard Chikota, attached at Faculties of Humanities, Social Sciences, and Education. So my question is very short. I've already put it in the chat line. I wanted to understand from the presenters whether they ever thought about developing an alternative border post, because through this initiative, I think we'll have a lot of traffic using Bed Bridge. I was thinking of what was said some time ago, that there was a thinking of coming up with another border post around Madimbo or Crook's Corner. That's my question in short.
Thank you, Dr. Chikota, and I think it links with what Dolphin has posted on the chat as well. Tendai?
Thank you very much. I'm Tendai Gondo from the Faculty of Science, Agriculture and Engineering, and specifically Department of Urban and Regional Planning. I got excited when you presented the current model, but I wanted to know where do we situate the current municipalities that are located along the SEZ in terms of smart city technologies such as GIS-based technologies for managing municipal assets, managing infrastructure. I didn't see that one coming out quite well. And then we also know that in this region, of course, we mentioned the issue of climate change and so forth, but we experience a lot of flooding, and emergency services is one area that might benefit from smart city technologies. I'm not sure how far the current model is also addressing that area in that regard. And then finally, I wanted to comment on the smart region that we need to create. One of the main challenges is the digital divide, the current digital divides across different spatial units. I don't know whether the current model has any component of addressing that because I believe that deploying smart cities technologies might also be influenced by the current digital divide that this region is experiencing. Thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. I will now ask Karuna and her team to respond. I'm not sure if I missed any hand that was up long time ago. If yes, please step in. Except one time, when they will come back to you. Let's unless if it's an immediate follow-up. I wanted to check if there's anyone whose hand was up and was not recognized before I hand over to Karuna.
Prof, I just want to ask this simple question so that whenever she answers, she must also include it.
Yes.
That my question is, who is behind all this development? Unfortunately, I joined now because I had a problem of network here where I am. So I just want to know who is behind this. Is it a government or is it a company or whatever? Thank you.
Thank you. Karuna.
Sure, sis. I think let's go with the last question first. We are appointed by the MMSEZ to develop a concept and a model for a smart city. So we appointed by a company, a state-owned company. The SEZ is a state-owned company, and its mandate is to set up a special economic zone that catalyzes the economy. It's obviously has an important dimension in terms of the national picture of our country. And so the concept that we've put across talks to government, and it talks to the SEZ, and it talks to you as the academic community, because if we don't have, and it will talk to business also. So that's, I think that somebody else also asked a very similar question where, you know, who you're engaging and the stakeholders. So to get this concept finalized, we are talking to you as the university, and we did agree that you'd invite a whole lot of other people. This is just the first kickoff. And then we will be having a consultation with the business community. We will be having a consultation with youth, and we will be having a consultation with government. So once we've done those consultations, we'll finish our report, and then it's a matter of the decision makers actually taking it forward. Okay, so that's the two questions. Then I think the Prof who raised the issues of indigenous knowledge systems are very close to my heart also, Prof. Years ago, I visited the Venda area and met the people who do the Venda pottery and the wood etchings. And at that time, the Minister of DTI was Phumzile Mlambo Mgluka, and she asked me to go into these areas and look at things, and that's how you got your Indigenous Knowledge Act to protect our own intellectual property. I believe that, Venda pottery, Venda wood etchings, and that kind of thing is being done generation after generation is learning. And that can become something that we market as luxury goods in the world. But we need to look at how we make it more accessible. So yes, I agree with you that it's important to take note of that. And we did look at it. The other question you asked was the EIA and the risk areas. And yes, there's a balancing act. And somebody else raised that issue of the urban-rural divide and the connect. And how do we actually get the balancing act going? And so, yes, the balancing act is always going to be around issues like, is NEMA more important, or is our economy more important? Is the land use more important, or is the, the developers' interests more important? And at all times, we're going to have to transact that balancing act that needs to be in place. I think we're very fortunate that we have, the Spluma Act in place that actually says identify your land uses, and once you've got your land uses in place, then you engage with your investors and you're very clear about what you actually going to develop in the area, what your needs are, and how it would go on. So coming to what Tendai has been raising, yes, Tendai, I think your point is very valid. The two current municipalities in the smart region are Musina and Makhado, and currently they do not have any intelligent systems in place. They do not use big data or just big data to actually deal with their services and their planning. And it would be useful to actually, in this process, begin to capacitate them. But alongside what the SEZ is doing, we must remember that there is a district development model and there is a district development hub in place. And so all of this would need to be presented to the district development hub to actually really assist not just these two municipalities, but all municipalities to actually improve their services. The digital divide issues, there are a number of agencies in the province. So yes, we need to look at that and harness what Limpopo Connect is attempting to do, as well can that be utilized to actually ensure that at least the footprint of coverage is wall to wall in the province. Last point that was raised was around additional border posts, and I know it's in the chat also. I think the important point is that we need to consider opening up the Pontsdrift border, But remember, which border posts get done is not a provincial competency. It's not a local government competency. It's actually a national competency. So you actually need all of government talking about it. And in fact, you know, the whole area is dotted with border posts, and then there are informal border posts where people informally come into the country, and you need to start looking at how we actually manage all of that in a better way. When I first went into government in '95, it was very interesting. That's when I first heard about the Beitbridge border post and, you know, how the borders were guarded previously. And I think now we're back to looking at what we should do, not because we want to close the borders up, but we want to ensure that we are able to actually ensure that Africa develops and that the market of Africa opens up. It is now Africa's time. It has come. And there are a number of things in place that can assist, you know, development of more border posts, more smart border posts, and the movement of goods and trade across the different countries. Thank you. I don't know if anybody else on the team wants to add to it. So perhaps we could just check. Ashraf, Yusuf, are there any points you want to add?
Yes, Karuna, I can see Ms. Makuya and Yusuf Asaf would like to add. Thanks. Over to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair Karuna. Yeah, just to add to what Karuna is saying, I think what's important is that the SEZ is really presenting an opportunity for, you know, for this area and for this region. And what we need to be asking ourselves is, you know, how best do we leverage this opportunity so that we're able to, you know, to utilize it in a way that will benefit everyone, but also position this area for the future. So, you know, typically countries around the world have used mechanisms like SEZs to attract investments through all kinds of incentives. And that's what's going to happen here with this SEZ. So there's there's a more heavy industrial component to the SEZ, which is going to be on the southern side. And then the northern side is a, you know, more light industrial, light manufacturing, sort of more like a trade kind of hub as well. So I think, you know, just listening to all the questions like around, you know, the issue around the rural urban, you know, issues, the indigenous knowledge systems, etc. The idea is how do we utilize and position the opportunity around the SEZ in a way that enables us to deal with a lot of these issues, and to make sure that we're creating an inclusive situation, but we're also ensuring that we positioned competitively to be able to really fundamentally address the issues of underdevelopment and generate a kind of sustainable economy. So for me, that really becomes a critical issue. The SEZ incentives that's going to incentivize investment and attract investment, we need to begin to be guiding that. So the smart city model also is really about guiding what kind of investment we want to come in, and especially around the northern side, and how it will integrate with the border post, with Musina, and with the corridor going into Makhado, and how we activate all of that. I think the issue is really we're not coming in and saying this is what must be developed. This is part of a process of developing the co-creation of the concept of the smart city region. And once we agree with all the different stakeholders, and especially the inputs we will receive, as well from from the university and the academic community as critical kind of shapers, because we're connecting with various kinds of knowledge systems in the academic community that can actually shape and enhance the smart city model. But the idea is that we put in place a model and a framework that's going to guide investment and even the spatial development of the area. So if you saw some of those maps or even that northern site, we're beginning to identify and look at what are the kind of economic drivers in the area and what must the smart city cater for. So we're talking of a model of saying we can develop certain kind of clusters, whether it's clusters around light steel manufacturing, whether it's clusters around the wood and furniture industry, etc. And when we talk of those clusters, it's really about activating innovation so that we're creating a synergy between businesses, industries, between research organizations, academic community, and government. So again, if you look at a lot of models, international models, to drive innovation, you need the synergy between these different role players. And the idea in this clustering approach is that it's not just about bringing in developers and people that will come with their own, obviously individual plans and ideas. We want to begin to say, look, we want to shape this into a strategic economic thrust. And this has to be an inclusive approach driven by innovation and really positioning through the SEZ and the smart region, positioning the entire area for competitive and sustainable growth. So yeah, I thought I wanted to just maybe add on to that. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Prof. Firstly, let me just appreciate this platform. The quality of comments and questions and inputs that we're getting is indeed valuable. And we look forward to getting the recording and also the messages that are coming through the chat box. I just wanted to talk to one issue, which is around the environment and the EIA. There was a question around that. And I just needed to indicate that for the SEZ project, the EIA for our north side, which is Aton Villa, has been approved. And the EIA for our south side, which is the metallurgy side, that is our 8,000 hectare land, is in progress. In fact, we are moving towards the finalization of that application process. We anticipate that by the end of this year, we'll be submitting our final report. So I just wanted to also give that comfort to say the environment or environmental sustainability is at the heart of this development. With regards to the rest of developments around the smart city, of course, then those legal prescripts around the environment will definitely be adhered to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Makhado. Can you please introduce yourself as well?
My apologies. My name is Chamano Makhado. I'm the Stakeholder Relations Manager at Musina-Makhado SEZ. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, we are supposed to be wrapping up now. I am noticing Professor Ndlovu's question, since part of the success of the project hinges on access to markets beyond the border into our northern neighbor, have you consulted them or considered partnering with them in some selected instances? Is there any question that we're missing? There are great comments from Dolphin, from Dr. Ingwani, and others. So colleagues, this would be the last round. Short questions and short answers, please. Wondering if Dr. Nechisaulu's hand is a legacy one or new one. Is there anyone that I'm missing in terms of contribution, colleagues, before we ask for key people to wrap up? No? Dr. Nesaulu, are you okay, or you want to say something?
Yeah, I just want to be clarified on something here, because we are dealing with the people who are coming from the state, the government, which I believe is a democratic government. And my problem is, as I've heard Womiligwe speaking, that some of the land claimants, they are dealing with them. Some of them, they've already settled with them. But my problem is, then how can you come up with this plan when some of the people have not yet been sorted out? I think it's a problem, because if you look into our government, we have almost 27 years after and within these 27 years, they failed to sort out this issue of land claims as they promised in their constitution. If you look into the preamble of the constitution, it says a lot. And some of the things that it says is they will redress and reverse the injustices made by the colonial government, the colonial and apartheid regime. And the land issue is not yet sorted out. But then now they are coming up with a plan when some people are still, when some people have claimed their land and they have not yet received their land. Is this justice of our country? That you are going to say, no, we are going to negotiate when everything was done. I thought maybe the best would be to resolve the problem of these land claimants, and they come up with their plans, and they sell the plans to them. We have this plan in this particular piece of your land, but with our government, it's upside down. Don't you think that is a dictatorship? Because when these people, the politicians, fought, they were saying we are fighting for our land. But now that they are in power, I think they are now fighting for their stomach, other than to fighting for the land that was usurped by the apartheid government and the colonial government. I think they're doing things upside down. I don't know whether I don't understand, but that is the way how I see it. There is no justice that is done here by our government.
Thank you.
And again, when they talk of smart city or smart village, how can we expect smart product when they are not smart themselves? Because doing this shows that they're not smart themselves.
Thank you so much. Well, Dr. Nesaulu, thank you very much. I'm acknowledging you, Mr. Murigwe. This is how we are going to conclude this session. I'm going to ask Murigwe to say a few words, which I think you have already clarified. Please keep it short about Dr. Nesaulu's concern. But there is also Professor Ndlovu's question that I think your team should respond to. And then I'm going to ask either Bo Makuya or Dr. Chakuzira to make an announcement about our plans for the coming symposium. And then I will ask Senior Professor Ikose to convey the vote of thanks to conclude the session, because colleagues, as we have learned from so many presentations and so many inputs, part of why we are here is to locate ourselves as researchers, as engaged scholars, as lecturers, to also figure out, if we are looking at this as an opportunity, how might we tap from these developments? So over to you, Mr. Murigwe, and I would like one of your team members, together with Dr. Chakuzira, to convey the announcement, and then followed by Senior Professor Ikose's concluding remarks. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prof. I think I am tempted to say, because of time factor, the issue of land, we can shelve it for some other time, because I wanted to explain more. But yeah, I think we need to talk more about that separately from this process, because this is just one project out of many government initiatives that are doing. But if we can start to address the issue of land, we will need the whole day. But what I wanted to safely say is that on the land that government is proposing SEZ projects, all the land claims issues are under control and resolved. There's not any other land that is not resolved that we are going to use for this project. But basically the entire process of land claim, it needs land commission, it needs the Department of Public Works and all the affected stakeholders. And we cannot engage much on that. Here we're just talking about one specific project of government that it's happening in a piece of land that has been resolved, that doesn't have any problem. But if there are other problems relating to land and the SEZ, we are welcome to tackle those ones. But out of the land that we are using now, there are no problems of land claims. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Womuligwe. Any announcement from your team before Senior Professor Ikose? Karuna, over to you.
Chair. Thank you, Chair. Hello, Chair.
Yes, we can hear you.
Good. I think, Chair, it would be very important that we share some links with your entire community at Univen on the full reports, because a lot of the, the questions being asked, there are a lot of details in it, in the full reports. And I think if the academic community will not read the reports, then nobody else would. So I will send you the links to that, as well as, the presentation that was done today.
Thank you, Karuna, and your team, much appreciated. Any announcement?
Thanks, Prof. With regards to announcements, let me first indicate that we are having these consultation sessions this week and next week on the 19th rather, which is Thursday. Am I still audible?
Yes.
Oh, sorry, I got distracted there. Okay, also on the 19th, we're going to have a session with government, and that's where we're going to also address all the issues. Some of them are raised here. So government as a collective will be able to make inputs into this process. We're also going to have another session on the 24th with business. That includes the ICT sector. And on the 26th, we're going to also have a session with the youth, and youth being the beneficiaries, of the smart city in years to come. We felt it's very important that they are part of this process. Then on the 16th of September, we're going to have a symposium, Smart City Model Symposium, which will take place at the University of Venda. This is the partnership that exists between Musina-Makhado SEZ and the university. And at this session, we have invited a number of panel members who are going to come and talk issues around smart cities, 4IR, and many other related topics. And that will be in two sessions. One session will be to talk about the smart city, and the following session in the afternoon will talk about co-creation, where we have identified various speakers from the university, from the CSIR, the UNDP, to further talk about how we can co-create this smart city model. So more communication will follow through the project team that's in place, and all relevant colleagues will get the information. Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you, much appreciated, Womakuya. Can I now take this opportunity to ask our Senior Professor Ikose to convey a vote of thanks. Senior Prof. Is he here? Professor Ikose?
Yes, Prof.
Yes, could you bless us with your vote of thanks?
Yeah. Colleagues, we want to thank you very much to have come and shared with us, issues related to the SEZ. And quite frankly, University of Venda is committed to this initiative, and more so from my desk, as the director responsible for research and innovation, we fully embrace this move. And we do believe that with the next steps that will be taken, we shall be part and parcel of it as a university, working in tandem with the government to ensure that SEZ becomes a reality. Aroda and team, we want to thank you for making this virtual visit and for the knowledge that you have shared with us. And Professor Neshandama, thank you for the excellent coordination. We wish everyone who has participated, success, and let's carry the thoughts and ensure that we are part and parcel of it for its realization. Thank you.
Thank you, Senior Professor Ikose. Thank you, colleagues. I think we have a lot to read, like Karuna has promised to send us the link. We have a lot to reflect on. We need to locate ourselves and utilize these opportunities for our engaged scholarship. Thank you very much to our guests, Karuna and your team, Bomakuya, Bomuligwe, and your team. Until we interact again, have a blessed afternoon, blessed week, and all the blessings and success. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much, Prof.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Prof. Neshandama. Excellent job.
Bye, everyone.